Hello, people. I hope you guys had a very Merry Christmas and all that other things that we're not allowed to say anymore. The colonialism of a white Christmas to wish for to wish for such is just so wrong. It's just so damaging to society. Now, obviously, I hope you guys had a good Christmas. And people who did have a good Christmas as well was the Second Amendment community. And by having a good Christmas, I mean it's not that they got cool stuff; it's that they just didn't get that lump of coal they thought was coming. So it's bittersweet. We get to wave the flag, but it's not like we made any progress. It just means we didn't get pushed back. So it's cool, but it shows you kind of the status of things and why I'm not as excited as I should be. Let's just say, as maybe some of these other people are. And it has to do with a letter that was issued. I think it was the 18th of this month. That had to do with the NFA and pistol braces. Now, there's 1,000 different videos from within the gun community for people in the gun community about this letter, about the braces, and all that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to explain it in a normie sense for people who are not gun people. And it's because I don't think we communicate enough. Some things are very obvious to us, don't make any sense to the average normie. This is why I think Republicans in general are very soft when they usually don't try to pass new laws, but they also usually don't try to repeal ones that are on the books because they just simply they're not part of the group. They just don't understand. I think people who are independents, we can make very very good headway with independents because libertarians tend to all be pro gun. I say tend to be, not necessarily all of them. In fact, some of them are in name only. Let's just say. But the independents, that's really where we need to make the argument basically of why stuff like the NFA needs to go away, and those are the people we got to talk to. And if we convince them, then the wind starts shifting our direction, and we're going to be in a much better position than if we're just fighting with the Democrats. Because the Democrats they'll lie, they'll talk about fully automatic ghost guns that release 1,000 rounds in a 30-round clip second or whatever that one guy was saying. But that's not that's not who we that's not who we have to convince, because those people they just don't like the Second Amendment. They don't care that their facts are inaccurate. They don't believe in the Second Amendment. So for people who either are ambiguous or ambivalent on the Second Amendment, or people who believe in the Second Amendment or they think they do, but they don't understand it or aren't part of the 2A community, those are the people we got to start reaching out to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain some stuff that if you're in the gun community, you're going to be like, why are you telling me this? I know this. But if you're not, this should help you understand kind of what's going on. The ATF released a letter basically saying that they were going to be reclassifying things called pistol braces to decide whether they're short-barreled rifles and they fall under the National Firearms Act or the Gun Control Act. And tax stamps are involved and registration's involved, and it's a felony if you don't participate and all this other stuff. What the hell is a pistol brace? Well, a pistol brace goes here. It's not a stock, it just kind of looks like a stock. Now, what a pistol brace is basically someone who's trying to hold a weapon that's large. This is obviously this is a scale AR-15. I think it's supposed to have a 16-inch barrel. It might be a scale 14 and a half, but because this isn't pinned, but or just say pretending this is pinned. But what it does is basically this back part, which is a buffer tube on the AR particularly, instead of having a stock that's adjustable or fixed so that you can shoulder it, it hooks this plastic thing that's like it looks a lot like a stock. And the idea is that it clamps to your arm either on the top or a strap around along the side or on the inside. And that allows somebody who has basically any kind of disability to be able to raise a weapon with one hand and fire it, particularly pistols. And it doesn't count as a stock because it's not really movable usually, and it's not as nice as a stock. So it was basically so that people who with disabilities or weak shoulders and stuff could actually raise stuff that would otherwise be really heavy, like for instance an AR pistol, which would have like a short barrel and would have the back and the ammos in the front. Now, if you were to try to aim that with one hand, it's already hard enough. But if you were somebody who had a bum arm, you really couldn't practically aim something like this and shoot it recreationally or defensively if you didn't have some way to attach it to your arm. So those things got legal a couple of years ago at this point. I think we're approaching 10 years. And people went out and they bought them like crazy. And the reason they bought them like crazy is not because they're great and there's that many people with one arm who are trying to shoot front-heavy pistols with one hand. They bought them because of short-barreled rifle laws. A short-barreled rifle law is part of the NFA. There's lots of other stuff. Different states are different too. So, this you're in California, New Jersey, or New York. A lot of this doesn't apply because they just don't let you have anything. But the point being, what the feds did is they decided that, and what the rule was basically, anything that's shorter than 16 inches is considered a short-barreled rifle if it's got a stock on it. If it's a pistol, there's a certain length I think it gets to when it's considered then a short barrel rifle. But in general, basically, you can have like a 10.5-inch barrel on something like this, and it's considered a pistol. But then what you can't do is you can't have a stock on it. The idea being, you can't shoulder it. You're not allowed to shoulder pistols. Well, once these braces came out, and they were legal, well, nothing stops somebody from just putting it on their shoulder and using it like a short barrel rifle. And if you're unfamiliar, that law is extremely unpopular because it's cosmetic. When you shorten, and this is something video games and movies have taught people improperly. The more you shorten the barrel on a rifle, particularly something that's like intermediate caliber, like an AR-15, or even bigger for the larger calibers, like 7.62s and 30 cal. The more you shorten it, the less time that bullet has to travel down the barrel, which means that it doesn't get the full powder burn, and when it's leaving, it leaves at a lower velocity. So you lose accuracy, you might lose spin rotation, and most importantly, you basically lose range and velocity. And that literally makes your gun ballistically less deadly. But there's trade-offs. If it's shorter, you can usually maneuver it a little. It's a little lighter. It's easier to point. It's it might fit in your closet where something that's a 20-inch full size rifle might not fit. If you were to try to be stored in your vehicle for an emergency, you probably don't want one that's got 16 or 20 inches. You probably want something that's shorter. I wouldn't recommend a 7-inch AR-15. Firing 5.56 out of a 7-inch barrel. That's suboptimal to say the least. But you could do that if you really wanted to. If all your guns you wanted to take the same ammo and 5.56 was your choice, then you could make one that's short. It won't be super short, but it'll be short. And what they were doing instead of putting the stock on it, which would have been perfectly a reasonable thing to do, they had to put these pistol braces on it, which means it's not adjustable and you can still shoulder it. So for years now, people basically have been creating short-barreled rifles that aren't legally short-barreled rifles because they have the pistol brace on it. Well, the NFA, or I should say the ATF, came out with this letter, and they basically said, hey, you guys are having too much fun, and we fully acknowledge that crime has not increased. In fact, it's decreased since we've allowed these different things. Since we've allowed these pistol braces. That normally wrap around arms, so people are putting them on their shoulders, and it doesn't seem to cause a problem at all. In fact, it calls into question the entire existence of short-barreled rifle laws. Why do they exist? Because they're obviously not doing anything. Because they don't deter criminals. They just add more paperwork for the ATF and inconvenience the rest of us. But they said that, look, because they function effectively as short-barreled rifles, we want to now make them classified as short-barreled rifles, which meant all the millions of people who have these shorter ARs or AKs or basically short rifles with pistol braces on them that they like to shoulder. Now, basically, you either register it with the ATF and you handle the tax stamp, which they were saying, we'll probably do that for free, which is normally a $400 tax stamp, and then you have to register and all this other crap. Or you turn in your pistol brace, and then if you don't do either one of those things, you're a felon automatically, and we throw you in jail for probably the rest of your life, and take away any Second Amendment rights you had for the rest of your life for a cosmetic option on your weapon. Another weird rule. So if you've got a pistol brace on something and you've got the short barrel, you can't put a pistol grip on the front. You've ever seen pistol grip on the front? It's like that thing where somebody's holding the pistol grip in the back, which is this guy. But then in the front, somebody likes to have, instead of holding the rifle like this, where it sits in your hand. I'm trying to get myself on screen, where it, like, the barrel rests in your hand. It's like this, and you're able to like grip a piece of something, and then the barrel's like up here. You can't do that for a pistol because that turns it into a short-barreled rifle arbitrarily, legally, right? So there was already stupidity with basically the laws and things like that. It's the same thing. We're going to see the same thing with angled grips too, because angled grips right now, you can put that on a pistol, but an angled grip, it's just a pistol grip that's just modified a little different than, like, at what angle does it no longer become an angled grip and it becomes a pistol grip in the front? It's just really dumb waste of time laws. So they came out, they released this letter on the 18th. The Second Amendment community basically rose up, and we did letter writing, phone calls to senators, phone calls to lawmakers, contacting the White House, doing all this stuff. We said, look, what's the point of even wasting time with this, right? The NFA already is a ridiculous waste of time. It already costs us time, money, and agency attention. And now you're going to basically make us all have to register or go to prison. And basically nobody's going to comply with it. And the people who do comply with it, it's going to be such an extra hassle. Like, why is this even happening? Like what is the point? And to our surprise, some senators, including Mitch McConnell of all people, actually stepped up and they said, "Look, ATF, like, just withdraw this letter. This is stupid. Probably the whole rule shouldn't exist in the first place, and you going in and now trying to like tweak things and make it even dumber. There's no point. Just people, basically, you're making people less free, and you're adding more paperwork and headache for yourself. This doesn't make anybody safer. This doesn't make law enforcement any more effective. This doesn't keep guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have the guns. What are you doing? You're just harassing people at this point." And, whoever the guy was who wrote this letter at the ATF, I'm sure, was very sad that his work has gone to waste. But, they backed off. They said, all right, we're withdrawing this letter. Keep your pistol braces. We don't give a shit. Like this was stupid for us to even care in the first place. Shows you how dumb the NFA is. NFA is. So that was a big victory. And like I said before, it's not really a victory. It's just not a loss. It looked like we were going to lose ground again. And despite us basically proving that we can own SBRs and have crime go down, they were going to now make it so that now you can't have those even. We know, okay. You proved that the SBR laws are dumb, and how dare you? So now you'll be a felon if you continue to do that. Total waste. So that's the weird stuff associated with the NFA and these pistol braces. That's the short version. And I know maybe there's a more concise way to say it, but I'm trying to impress upon people who have never heard of this thing before. What's going on? Like, what is all the drama about? Does it seem technical and gun nerdy and just superfluous? Why do you care? Well, you're asking us why we care. Well, we care because it affects our ability to actually, put furniture on our guns and stuff and just live our lives. The question is really, why does the ATF care? Why does the government care, right? I can't think of anybody who I would say, yeah, give them an AR pistol or give them an AR, but don't give them a short-barreled rifle. There's nobody who I would give one type of gun and be okay with, and then say, oh, but they can't have this type. That's too. The bottom line is the person either they're bad and they should not have a weapon of any type, or it's none of your damn business, right? None of my business. And one of the things I think, let's just say, one of the more compelling arguments I've heard is the left likes to bring up. They like to say there's more guns in the United States than there are people. And I don't 100% know if that's true, but in terms of, let's just say there's at least like low estimates 100 million AR-15 or similar weapons out there. What I mean by that, semi-automatic magazine-fed rifles. And that's effectively, that's what they're talking about when they say an assault weapon. They mean a semi-automatic sporting rifle that's magazine fed. That's what they mean. It could be black and scary, or it could be have wood furniture on it. It doesn't matter. That's what they're talking about banning. Basically, anything that you pull the trigger, the bolt goes back, and it loads the next round, and then you pull the trigger again, and then it shoots again. That's what they're talking about. Which, yes, handguns work that way, but let's talk rifles, right? We'll go on the low estimate. Let's say there's 100 million AR-15s out there. Now you can, if you're a gun control advocate, say we stop the sale of them, track all the ones that exist, and then they say, well, that's unreasonable because how are you going to track all those? Okay, well, instead of tracking them and registering them, why don't we just ban them? We'll just confiscate them unless somebody's got like an FFL. We're just going to confiscate them because we don't want people to have these. Okay, you're going to go down and you're going to find 100 million semi-automatic sporting rifles, AR-15s, right? I don't know how you're going to do that, but okay, let's say you did have the operational capacity to do something like that. Forget the fact that it would cause a unbelievable civil conflict. Why then are you not using that type of resource and attention to pay close attention to the fractional amount of people who are actually criminal threats who have the potential of getting guns in their hands that are not that we don't want to have guns, right? Because a criminal, they generally can't go into a gun store and purchase a gun if they have a felony. They have to get it on the black market. They have to get it on the street. They have to get it from a friend. It has to be a straw purchase, something like that, right? So those things do occur, and that's usually how these gangs and people who are felons usually end up with weapons, is that either they have something that's been grandfathered in from the family, or they know somebody, or they just steal it, right? There's not 100 million of those people, but there's a good amount of them. Why isn't the ATF focusing on those people? When you see stuff like the Orlando nightclub shooter or the Vegas shooter or Timothy McVeigh, the bomber, because it's the ATFE, who's, alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and explosives. How many of those people are out there, really? Right? It's not that many. It's really not. They do stop people from doing these types of things, but wouldn't it be a lot more effective and a lot more worth everybody's time if those were the people the ATF and the federal agencies focused on? Because instead of trying to track down 103 to 300 million inanimate objects and arresting people who are otherwise law-abiding just for owning them or wanting to keep them, wouldn't it just be much, much, much better use of time and resources to just take those agents and focus on the actual people who are threats? Follow up on that call that Disney made about the guy casing the place. Follow up on that call that the FFL made about the guy acting suspicious and trying to purchase a gun, and he has a foreign accent and just something seems off, right? Wouldn't that be, follow up on the weapons being imported in from Mexico, or the tracking, Chinese guns coming into the cartels, or military weapons disappearing from the Mexican military, ending up in the cartel's hands, and then ending up in the United States. Like, there's not that much of that stuff going on, but there's enough of it where, like, I could see the justification for an agency to maybe focus on that, right? Why would you distract yourselves if you guys are so strapped for resources, as they always claim, with this, right? And not just this, but measuring the length of the barrel, deciding whether you can have a suppressor on the end of it or not. The magazine capacity, the discussions about that. I mean, the standard capacity is 30 rounds. Like, they're not going anywhere. You know, we've got most people own dozens, if not 100 of these damn things. They're not going anywhere. A stock versus a pistol brace. Select fire even. What's like, honest to God, half the mass shooters that I've looked into, they would have killed so many less people with select fire because they would have just dumped all their ammo and not hit anything. Like, a select fire weapon wouldn't have made it really. I can't think of any shootings where that actually would have made a difference. You know, all the way back to the freaking guy in the bell tower. Like, if he had select fire, maybe he would have been out of ammo immediately. He wouldn't have been able to take those precise shots he took. You know, like, JFK was taken out with a World War II bolt action. Okay, I get it. Like, you don't want somebody setting up with like an M60 on a rooftop and cutting down 1,000 concert goers. It wouldn't be 1,000. I mean, the amount of ammo you'd have to do something like that would be absurd. But it doesn't stop somebody from planning something out to do a lot of destruction. But this is where the ATF has a role, right? You guys can stop these people. And the way to stop these people is not to focus on the rest of us about whether we can have guns with pistol braces or stocks or certain length barrels or select fire or whatever. That doesn't benefit. Nobody benefits from that. Like, you guys, if I were to take my AR-15, this is obviously a toy, guys, and I were to put a short barrel on top, right? Place the upper receiver short barrel. I've now committed a felony, right? But who's safer from them arresting me? Who's safer from them telling you that, oh, well, that shotgun you want to keep, that's got to have an 18-inch barrel as opposed to a 16-inch, like in Canada. Like, in Canada, you can have 16-inch barrel shotguns, but you can't have, like, all this other stuff. But the United States are like, oh, no, 18 inches is, like, the magical number. Well, why? Like, what's the point of that, Is a criminal not going to saw off the barrel of the shotgun because you made a law that said they don't do that? That's extra illegal. Like, if they're doing something bad, they're not gonna care. Like, what are they thinking? Like, oh, if I get caught during an armed robbery, I better not get caught with something that violates the NFA because that's an extra that might be an extra charge. Of course not. It doesn't do anything, and that's the point. So, normies, short version, ATF is playing games with the cosmetics because of things like the Gun Control Act and the National Firearms Act. And this has been a problem for about 100 years. About literally cosmetic changes and some minor functionality changes to firearms being something that these federal agencies want to focus on instead of actual criminality, criminal weapons trafficking, human trafficking, all these other kind of things that they should be spending time on. Instead, they're going around to gun shows with measuring tapes and measuring the lengths of barrels. And then what they were planning on doing was deciding whether they would classify certain types of pistol braces as actually stocks or not stock. It's such a waste of everybody's time and money. And it also puts innocent people or I should say, otherwise law-abiding people at risk of being in violation of federal law, to no benefit to society, no benefit to the agency, no benefit to the other citizens. The only people that benefits are politicians and criminals. Need I repeat myself? And particularly, I'm going to say criminals, because now you've got ATF agents handling extra paperwork and extra BS and throwing other people in jail who aren't threats just because they have, a pistol brace on and they've shouldered it, rather than focusing on actual criminals. Actual criminals must love this kind of crap, because the more laws, the more complication there is with this gun law stuff, the easier it makes it for them to traffic illegal weapons and for them to just do their crimes. Because that's another agent who's now focusing on doing paperwork for suppressors or short barrel rifles or any other weapon or shotguns or bore diameter because somebody wants to get like a cannon, but like if it's the wrong kind of cannon, you have to go through the ATF or something if it's past a 50 caliber diameter. But in California, 50 is also illegal, so you have to get it's such a mess that the only people who benefit are the people who basically benefit from the feds being distracted with all that. So moderates and people who otherwise don't care. I know, Second Amendment community, they're not always the most articulate and not always the kindest. We all hate each other too. Be surprised how unpopular the NRA is within the Second Amendment community. And the people who support them often hold their nose while doing so. But this is the kind of crap we deal with. Nobody's safer. Nobody's safer from this, Nobody's safer from this kind of stuff. If you want to make an argument that basically the Second Amendment inherently makes people unsafe, fine. At least make that argument. But this here, this nonsense here, let's be honest, who's it help? Who's it help? Right? It doesn't even help you guys, because if you really wanted to confiscate and ban all weapons and deal with all the stuff with that, you mean you want to tie these guys up with paperwork about things that are NFA and non-NFA and all that kind of stuff? Like, nobody benefits from it except for the criminals and the politicians. So that's all. I will maybe do another video on suppressors because they're another part of the NFA that's stupid. But in this case, we're talking SBRs and pistol braces, and there's so much wrong with the NFA. It's you could make a dozen videos on it and not even really dip as deep down as you really should. So that's all. Hope you guys had a Merry Christmas and have a Happy New Year.